So my name is David Bianco.
My name is Kat Self.
And we're really excited to talk to you today about Target's threat hunting program. It turns out that Chris, I don't know where you are right now because I can't see, but your presentation is a really good segue into ours because Target has had a threat hunting program at the start of the story. I think it was about 4.5 years old. And neither one of us were really involved in the old threat hunting program. But it follows that kind of reservist model because that version of the threat hunting team was basically all of our incident response analysts coming in, stepping out of their day jobs for a week at a time and doing threat hunting. And they kind of thought of it in part as, their time to have fun and build their skills. So it really does kind of follow that play as professional development model. So that's what we'd like to talk to you a little bit about today, how we took that and made it even a little bit better. So like I said, my name is David Bianco. I never really know quite how to say what I do, so for purposes of this talk, let's just say that I'm a threat hunting researcher. I like to figure out how to do better at threat hunting and then tell people all about it so all of us can do better.
And my name is Kat Self. I'm a lead threat hunter on Target's threat hunting team. I am also a former red teamer, so I guess you could say I'm officially purple now, both sides. And obviously a well-rounded nerd, because that's got to be in the bio.
I'd like you to take our threat hunting program to the next level. Those were pretty much exactly the words that our vice president said to me at the end of last year, which is really good. If you've ever been in this position, they just give you the mission, point you at it, and let you go. But it's really exciting, but it's also really scary because, how do I do this? What does this mean? I don't know. In order to figure out how to take our threat hunting program to the next level, I guess first we have to figure out where we are and then what the next level looks like. So, like the start of any good story, we started with a lot of meetings with people, right? At this time, it was mostly just me. I spent some time identifying and meeting with the key stakeholders in the existing threat hunting program. I talked to the folks who had started the program originally. I talked to the folks who were running the program right now. I talked to a few of the folks who had key roles as threat hunting leaders. And I really just wanted to ask them a few simple questions. I wanted to ask them, first of all, of course, what's working in our threat hunting program? What do you really like about it? But then I also wanted to know, what don't you really like about it? Are there things that you've wanted to improve that you never really, maybe you didn't really think you knew how to improve, or you didn't think that they would back you up to improve? What could we do better in this? And also, kind of a corollary to that, what things have you always wanted to be able to do with our threat hunting program that you thought would never get approved? They're too crazy sounding, or there may be too many resources involved, or anything like that. And I talked to a lot of people, kind of just trying to get my head around this whole idea of what the next level would look like.
So I came onto the team several months after David, and my approach was I wanted to get the lay of the land for the actual operations. So I embedded myself into the hunt operations. I met with the leads of the hunt, the different analysts. I conducted roundtables, met with our partner teams, because hunt correlates a lot with other teams, whether it's data pooling or processes. I got their perspectives, and I also met with leadership. All of this basically because our hunt program was meeting needs, and I wanted to make sure what those needs were before we wanted to approach it and figure out what we might want to change in it.
So after that initial round of meetings, I talked to a bunch of people, and I realized that I was hearing some of the same things over and over again, which was actually good because that helps identify the real messages that those people are trying to bring forward. And I kind of went away a little bit and spent some time, and I kind of distilled all the things down into 3 major focus areas. So this is what I think our next level looked like, right? And we're going to talk a little bit more throughout this presentation about each of these, as well as we're going to talk about the existing state, and then we're going to talk about the next level state. The 3 areas that I came up with were the program focus. In other words, what is the purpose of doing threat hunting and what kind of value does it bring to target? And then we're going to talk about some operational consistency issues, which has to do with the mechanics of doing the threat hunting every week. And then we're going to talk about the overarching strategy behind what we choose to hunt for and when. So the first thing, and this is the program focus. The first thing was, when I talked to the folks who originally set up the threat hunting program, and I asked them, why do you think Target does threat hunting? Their answer was, we want to identify new incidents that we missed with our automated detections, and we want to find the gaps in our visibility, which is pretty good. But then I realized when I was talking to the folks that were currently doing the threat hunting program, their view of the focus of that threat hunting program had shifted somewhat. So all the folks that were currently involved at that time their idea was that it was a skills development and skills transfer and mentoring between the incident responders that made up the hunt team. So the hunt team at that time was not a dedicated hunt team. They were brought together on a rotational basis, kind of like that reservist module, so that the hunt team would come together one week and they would disband, and a new hunt team would come together with different members the next week, which really worked out well for the skills development and skills transfer, because they got to meet with people and work with people who might be on a different shift or had different skills that they could learn from that week. But it had definitely kind of drifted from that idea of finding new incidents. Both of those are very valid aspects of a threat hunting program, and we certainly wanted to keep them. I especially really liked the skills development and skills transfer piece, but they weren't exactly what I thought we should get out of it. So before I came to Target, I used to work at a vendor called Squirrel, and we made threat hunting platforms. So we produced a lot of, technically marketing, but hopefully, useful marketing. One of the things I came up with when I was at Squirrel was this thing called the threat hunting maturity model, and it measured how mature a threat hunting program at an organization is against a couple of axes. So the first axis is the amount of data and the quality of data and the number of different types of security relevant data that your threat hunting program, your threat hunters have access to, right? The second axis is, when you have all that data, how skilled are your threat hunters at actually doing something with that data and extracting what you're trying to get out of it? So I took a look at where we were now, and we were pretty much solidly at a level 3, which is really good. It's the second highest level. I don't want to brag on a program that I didn't really have anything to do with, but a lot of organizations probably would have been really happy if their program had been able to score a level 3 on this model. But the challenge was okay, we're not happy exactly with where we are. We want to do better. What do we do better? Well, there was this obvious step here if we're rated at a level 3, according to this model, better, next level is level 4. The only difference between level 3 and level 4 is actually a very small one, and I turned it into the focus of our threat hunting program. So at a level 3, you have lots of data, and you have a group of skilled threat hunters that can take that data and pretty much find whatever they're looking for in there. The difference between a level 3 and a level 4 is only then that level 4 teams actually turn their successful hunts back into automated detection so they don't have to spend their time hunting for that again. They use it as a driver. Their threat hunting program is a driver for improving the automated detection, because the automated detection is really the only thing that scales well to protect an enterprise. So what we did, and this was not only the first step, but it was also the quickest step and the zero cost step, is we just decided our threat hunting program's focus is no longer, identifying incidents. It's no longer skills transfer, even though we wanted to specifically keep both of those things. Our threat hunting program's main driver is to improve targets' ability to detect incidents automatically.
So, going back to the focus areas, one of them was operational consistency. So when I was sitting with the teams, one thing that became very apparent was just as much as David had just mentioned earlier about how every team, every single week, it would be a brand new team, brand new analysts, brand new leads, brand new topic. And what was happening was data collection was supposed to be done prior to the week, but really it was finishing up on Monday. And then you'd have to get the data formatted, cleaned up. You'd have to make sure all the analysts had the skills there to be able to parse the data, be able to actually hunt in that type of environment, have the research, the context. And then there was the incidents, then there's a follow-up. It might not just be a simple follow-up. It might be a process follow-up, right? Those are usually a little gray. And all of this was supposed to be done within 5 days. So all of it was led by one CCERT, our level 3s. So we were expecting too much out of someone that actually already had a full-time job, because Monday through Friday the previous week, they had a different job, just as they did with the following week. So we were expecting 10 days of hunting out of a 5-day bag. So the way we addressed this, we got help with the bags. So I am going to take a little time on this slide, because the way we came up with a solution for the operational consistency was more of a story than it was an event. We found that the key component to being able to figure out what our vision looked like was hiring full-time threat hunters. So we hired one, and then we realized when we hired the second one that we wanted to keep that 1-week cadence. That 1-week cadence allowed us to be very adaptive. It allowed us to be able to pivot very quickly. And we really liked that ability. So we wanted to keep that, but then 2 different hunters, that was 1 week on and 1 week not hunting, and that was just too much. We weren't going to learn from the lessons that we had just experienced. So for us, 3 hunters allowed us to be able to stagger the operations. And I want to focus on this part where we wanted to keep the 1-week hunts, but that 2 weeks in between one hunt operation and the other was critical. We found that by actually allowing our hunters to be able to have time to actually prepare the data, to figure out where that data is in our environment, to do actual research, to then get everything ready for that hunt operation, that was critical to ensure that hunt operation was actually successful. Because usually what would happen is only 2 days of hunting would happen with our previous model. But then also, there's a week of follow-up. So when we would find things that might be visibility gaps or operational issues, or maybe it's, this team's process, we need to have a working agreement with them. Well, all of those actually can have follow-up, and actually we can follow those up and close those instead of just kind of dropping it. Another thing that this specifically afforded us was the ability to take a pause after that hunt, let things settle, and be like, okay, what does this hunt look like going forward? Like, what are the lessons that we learned? Let's document that. Now, what does the next level of this hunt look like? And then how can we mature that process? So this leads us into the next operational focus, which was our strategy. Previously in our hunt program, we have brilliant people that we work with, and we would get them all in a room, and then we would brainstorm these ideas. We'd mix it all up, and then put it on a calendar. This is great in application. It did have some flaws. One of them specifically was, if it wasn't, we would often run out of topics. We would always get really great topics, whether they were passion projects or things that were relevant from casework, but it wasn't always guaranteed that we would have a ton of topics. So, and it also didn't allow us to really apply a strategy. It was kind of like a scatter plot versus actually having a focus and alignment with where we actually wanted to take the program. So we figured out a way to apply strategy.
So our strategy actually plays out in a few different levels. So the first level, the most basic level probably, is that we take inputs from anyone, and they all go into a big JIRA backlog. And each one of those things is an idea of something that we could hunt for. During our process of fleshing all those things out, we intentionally take a look at each potential topic through 3 different lenses. And they happen to be 3 different teams within our Cyber Fusion Center. So the first lens is that we ask our strategic CTI team to take a look at that and rank it according to how many of the threat actors that we specifically track, like our high priority threat actors, how many of them are known to use that tactic or that technique. And we get an idea of, like, from the lens of the actors that we know are likely to come after us, how much of an impact, if we did hunting and did improvements in automated detection for this, would that be, right? The second is something that we do internal to our own team, and we do the kind of traditional risk calculation of impact and likelihood. Like looking at not only the targeted threat actors, but also like the threat environment in general that we operate in, that all of us share. How likely, how prevalent, in this case, how prevalent is that tactic or technique in the threat environment? And if it happened to us, like how bad approximately would that be for us? And the third lens is the strength of our existing detection. So we bring in our detection engineering team, and they give us their opinion on what we have in place already that can detect that tactic or technique, and how strong it is, how resistant it is to like different variations of it, and things like that. And each one of those is ranked on a scale of 0 to 5. 0, and this is a weird, is kind of an inversion. A 0 is actually the best case for target. Like and a 5, of course, is the worst case for target. So if we're talking about things that our tracked threat actors are using, if they score a 0, it probably means that none of our threat actors that we track are known to use that. If we score a 5, it probably means multiple of them use that. Like a 0 on the detection scale probably means that we have great detection and it's very robust. And a 5 would probably mean that we didn't have anything, or we had very, very little. And so we ended up with these 3 kind of individual axes, priority scores. But it's really difficult to deal with 3 different scores. So we wanted to find a way to kind of condense those into one. One of our other teammates, Joe Petrosky, had the idea of visualizing the different scores. And we used this kind of radar plot, or spider graph, sometimes it's called, to just kind of get a visual idea of what all those things going together would look like, right? Big plot area means higher priority for us, probably. Smaller plot area usually means lesser priority. But then we realized that, we basically were creating triangles. And let me tell you, if any of you have high schoolers, and they come to you and say, Mom or Dad, when am I ever going to need to learn, use this stuff in real life? We spent a kind of embarrassing 2 days trying to remember how to compute the area of a triangle given 3 polar coordinates. So yes, you have my permission to go tell your children. Polar geometry. It's the future. But what we realized was that, yeah, we were drawing triangles, and they were all to these normalized scales, so why not see if we could figure out how to make that into a risk score? And that's what we did. We compute the area of the triangle, and that gives us a kind of the raw priority score. And the raw priority score, I forgot what the actual upper limit is, like 35 or 37 or something like that. But then we scale it down to a 0 to 5 also to match the existing ones. And so, for example, this example here has like a raw priority score of about 11.26. But scaled down, it's a 2, so it's kind of on the moderate to good side. Like, we're in pretty good shape. There's room for improvement, but we're in pretty good shape on whatever this tactic was, right? And so every topic that we have, we start by prioritizing it this way. After we all prioritize all those, we're not done, and that's not the only way that we select what we're going to hunt for. So we had a few competing things that we wanted to get done with our hunt calendaring. We view our hunt calendar primarily as a strategic tool. We create hunting sprints, which our CSERT director tells me that I shouldn't use the word sprints because they're not sprints, because they go for like anywhere between a month and a half to 3 months. But all of our tool set calls them sprints, and I don't know what else to call them, so we're calling them sprints. Each one of these sprints, we assign a theme to that sprint. And the theme could be something like, oh, we want to do better with host-based detection on our Macs. Or it could be, we want to do better on detection in our cloud environment, or our retail environment, or we want to, I don't know, it could be anything, really. What the sprint themes allow us to do is to kind of focus our threat hunting program on a certain area that we would like to improve on for a little while. And then the next sprint comes and we can refocus it somewhere else. So the choice of the sprint themes gives us a strategic layer over top of the hunt calendar where we can decide what we think is important to focus on and drive improvement in that area for a little while. But not everything in there is according to the sprint theme. We also have topics in there that are chosen potentially just based on their raw priority score, like we just talked about. So for example, if it turned out that there were some things that had a really high priority score, we could easily fit them into our next sprint. And the third bucket of different topics that we can come up with is we call them the special requests. Remember, Kat told you that a lot of times our level 3 hunt leaders used to just say, here's my passion project, I'm really interested in hunting on this. We wanted to be able to preserve that because, again, we wanted hunting to have some element of fun still in it. So we have this area carved out in each of our sprints where we can add some special requests. They might be requests for, I really would like to work on this, I think it's fun. I have a big background in this, or I've been doing a lot of research in this, I'd like to continue it. It could be from our leadership saying, I'm really concerned about this kind of thing. What can we do? Maybe not a whole sprint topic, but sometimes they're just concerned with like a certain tactic. Like, hey, we were in a meeting with the other senior leaders and we thought, if we might be kind of weak in this tactic, or we got some intel from one of our ISACs that this is now prevalent in the threat environment, we should probably do something about that. So for each sprint, we take the majority of things would be the sprint theme, but we also can potentially add some things based on their priority score and based on any special requests, and we put those together to make the sprint calendar.
So we've talked about a lot of different areas. We've talked about changing the focus of the actual hunt program. We've talked about creating more of an operational consistency. And then we've also discussed how we applied strategy. And the way this all kind of comes together in an organization such as ours is in the beautiful smart art diagram that you see before you. So we found that we really wanted to make sure that we were working where all of the teams that we wanted to collaborate with were also working, because we really wanted to have high visibility and be accessible to those teams. So we chose Jira as our location to be able to put all of our topics for hunting on. That also allowed us to be able to have people just drop stories at any given time. It allowed us to be able to organize them and prioritize them and made that visible to everyone. So we chose Jira. Then what we do is we open up our hunting collection idea. Once we have our cutoff date, we then go over to our detection team and our threat intelligence team. And just as David had discussed earlier about the different scoring mechanisms and the different lenses that we try to apply, we have those teams take a look at all of the stories. They can add their own score. They can also add some more meat to the story. Sometimes that, hey, here's a link to a MISP, or hey, here is a link to this article that this threat actor is actually using this tactic, or this is relevant in this case. And they can add those additional details. Once it goes through our other teams, then it comes back to the hunting team. And then this is where we make sure each one of these stories has enough information on them that we can actually make a legitimate decision off of these stories. We add our own priority score, and we get them to that point where, again, it's a decision-making time. So after that, we take a look at our sprint themes, just like as David discussed earlier. We choose what that theme is going to be, and then we break our stories up into those different buckets. And then we publish our schedule. We also open it up to our organization. Something that we found was people want to hunt on what they want to hunt on, and we need to be able to enable them to be able to do this. So we open up our stories so that way everyone can kind of pick their top 3, and then that way we have that time open, and then once that time is cut off, then we actually schedule out the hunts. And by actually scheduling out the hunts this 2 months in advance, that might seem like a long time, but it actually was a great catalyst for us to be able to collaborate with other teams. So if we had other teams that wanted to shadow on our hunts, or we had a red teamer that we wanted to pull in to be able to do a proof of concept, it actually allowed those teams time to be able to prepare for that specific topic, because as we all know, like some of those hunt topics are super deep and technical, and not everyone knows every single thing about everything that we're hunting on at any given moment of time. So we wanted to be considerate in that regard. So we have a pyramid of takeaways. So the key, one of the biggest, I want to say the foundation points for us in reimagining the program was we needed people to be able to execute whatever that vision was going to be. And in our case, that was actually having full-time threat hunters. That was a key element that none of the other stuff would have been possible without. The second one is allocating time for actual preparation for a hunt and documenting the process. So that 2 weeks that we discussed earlier, that was critical for the success of a hunt. Not only to be able to have a good, well-prepared hunt and an operation, but also to be able to follow it through and really close those findings that we found during the hunts, and then iterating to what that next level looked like. And then lastly, but not least, is the strategy. So once our program actually became consistent, then we were also able to have this strategy, like just to ensure the fact that we are taking the hunt program in alignment with where we want to go and where we need to go, and we have that visibility.